Thank you for that good song service, and thank you for each and every one of you participating in the song service. If we have those that are visiting with us this evening, thank you so much for being here. And we appreciate you coming, and we invite you back any and every opportunity you might have. Look out of the crowd and notice some empty spots tonight. That's because our young folks are visiting away, and we're hoping that they're enjoying their worship services wherever they are. And they're making lifelong and eternal friends and associations with the endeavors that they're doing. You know, every time I stand up to preach, you really never know what kind of reaction you're going to get. And I hate to say this, but we have some sourpusses in the audience. You know, they kind of look at you like this, like if you say anything, they're going to bite your head off. And then Mark and Shauna's got that little boy over there who was just jumping for joy and smiling that big. I'm going to tell you something. That made my night. Whether I do you any good or not or whatever, their youngest one just did me a world of good because he was, I think he liked the song you picked there at the end. He seemed to really get into that one. We're in Job chapter 28 and 29, and we'll do our best to get through this as quickly as we can. Somebody said it sounds like I'm rushing through this. Well, I'm not trying to rush through the material, but there's no way that I can cover this material and just make point after point after point in regards to 50 different verses or something of that nature. We'd be here most of the night, and some of you would make sourpuss faces at me if that was the case. Some of you would enjoy it. Some would not. You'll have to determine which crowd you want to be in. Job 28, beginning in verse 1. Job 28, let me sum it up in one word. Wisdom. Wisdom. Job is about to have a discourse in regards to wisdom. This discussion started back in chapter 27. Job maintained his purity as he was answering the last time that Bill Hadad would speak in regards to the arguments that he's making. In 28 and then in 29, he's going to kindly sum up or start a summary that is really going to go all the way through chapter 31. And we'll get that next week. You get 30 and 31. But this summary takes the last three, 29, 30, and 31. And then starting in 32, we're introduced to a new character. And that new character is a young guy who's been sitting by listening to this entire discussion. And he finally says, had enough. I got to speak. Tried to be quiet. I've tried to be respectful and not butt in on this conversation. And I'm a young guy and all this kind of stuff. But I've got to say something. And I think anybody who is young has probably been at that point in time somewhere in their life. 28 and 29, chapter 28, wisdom. Surely there is mine for silver and a place where gold is refined. Iron is taken from the earth and copper is smelted from ore. Man puts an end to darkness and searches every recess. For ore in the darkness and shadow of death, he breaks open a shaft away from people. In places forgotten by feet, they hang far away from men. They swing to and fro. As for the earth, from it comes bread, but underneath it turned up as by fire. Its stones are the sources of sapphires. It contains gold dust. That path no bird knows, nor has the falcon's eye seen it. The proud lions, have not trodden it, nor has the fierce lion passed over it. He puts his hand on the flint. He overturns the mountain at the roots. He cuts out channels in the rocks, and his eyes see every precious thing. He dams up the streams from trickling. What is hidden, he brings forth to light. Job says in these first 11 verses there are a lot of questions that need to be answered. And where are these answers going to come from? Where is the wisdom going to come from? You look, and I don't know that I had ever put this together in 28, 1 through 11, but look at all the proven scientific facts and knowledges about ore and smelting of iron and copper and all these things. I guess man just lucked up on those things. I guess it was just a happenstance that we realize that these things are of value. You know, if I was out in a rock pile and I was busting rocks and I came across a shiny rock that's called a diamond, but it's still a rock and I'm having to shovel rocks out of the way for a wagon to get through, I don't know that I'd appreciate that shiny rock any more than I would a dull one. What put the value on these things? Where did the wisdom come from for us to realize that these gems, this iron ore, this copper, you know, travel Red Mountain Expressway and look at the rust on those mountains that come out of those iron ore. Hunter, would you ever thought, hey, you know what, I need to build a fire under that and we'll melt that iron down, we'll make a sword. What's a sword? Who ever thought about a sword? Where'd that come from? Start in verse 12. But where can wisdom be found? And where is the place of understanding? Man does not know its value. So it's not man that figured these things out. It's man through God's wisdom. And Job is giving credit to God. Man does not know its value, nor is it found in the land of the living. The deep says, it is not in me. The sea says, it's not in me. You know, we have folks who think they're smart today. And any man who says there is no God, Solomon has already said he's a fool. And you know, anybody who's so smart that they can build a rocket through all of the wisdom that we've gleaned from God to shoot that rocket up into the space to prove that there is no God is a fool. He lacks wisdom. He lacks understanding. You're not going to find anything way out there in space. The wisdom and the understanding that we need comes from God. Go to the book of Proverbs. Is it chapter 1 and verse 7? The fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. The respect, the honor, the reverence, the praise that we should have for God is the very beginning of wisdom. When we ignore God, we prove ourselves foolish. It cannot be purchased for gold, nor can silver be weighed for its price. It cannot be valued in the gold of Ophir, in precious onyx or sapphire. Neither gold nor crystal can equal it, nor can it be exchanged for jewelry or fine gold. No mention shall be made of coral or quartz. For the price of wisdom is above rubies. The topaz of Ethiopia cannot equal it, nor can it be valued in pure gold. From whence then, here's the second time this question is asked, from whence then does wisdom come? And where is the place of understanding? It is hidden from the eyes of all living and concealed from the birds of the air. Destruction and death say, we have heard a report about it with our ears. God understands its way, and he knows its place. For he looks to the end of the earth and sees under the whole heavens to establish a weight for the wind. Do you know you can weigh wind? That verse says you can. What? Man's wisdom did not come up with these things. Every scientific fact that's found in the Bible has always been proven to be true. Now, scientists went about it in a roundabout way, or the wrong way. They said, we're going to disprove the Bible. And where it talks about the paths of the seas in Psalms 8, Matthew Fontaine, the scientist of oceanography, laying on his deathbed, practically speaking, and said, you know, if I get well, if the Bible says there's paths in the seas, I'm going to find them. You know what he did? He got well. And he went out and found those ocean lanes that are still used today. They're currents that carry ships across the oceans. How did he know that? He got it from God. He got it from God. To establish the weight for the wind and apportion the waters by measure, when he made a law for the rain and a path for the thunderbolt, then he saw wisdom and declared it. He prepared it. Indeed, he searched it out. And to man he said, behold, the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom. Job kind of sounds like he's quoting from Solomon, doesn't he? And to depart from evil is understanding. What are you going to do with the truth? When you find the truth, Proverbs 23:23 says, buy the truth and sell it not. And that's what we should do. We should take this understanding and this wisdom and use it for our benefit. Now, when you come into 29, it's the beginning of 3 chapters that he is going to kind of summarize everything that he has been saying in regards to his defense. I like this chapter, Job's love for days gone by. Listen to it. Job further continued his discourse and said, oh, that I were as in months past, as in the day when God watched over me, when his lamp shone above my head, and when his light and I walked through the darkness, just as I was in the days of my prime. Now, how many of us, we talk about those days of prime, but those days of prime are gone. You know, I can remember when I could dunk a basketball. I do. I remember watching it now on television. That's about as close as I can get. I remember, you know, stealing that ball and taking the full length of court and getting crashed into and scoring and have a three-point opportunity. I remember those things. I remember being a little bit fast. Not fast anymore. I remember getting up and not having any aching pains. Get up now and you have to kind of stretch and, you know, and check all the places and make sure everything's going to line up so you can stand up. That's what Job is reminiscing. He's thinking about those days gone by when the friendly counsel of God was over my tent. He's thinking about in Job chapter 1 when he had bountiful, 10 children, thousands of sheep and camel and oxen, houses. When it looked like the hand of God was blessing him daily, he was remembering those days when the Almighty was yet with me, when my children were around me. I can't imagine losing every child you have and sit and reminisce about that. He's wishing for those days of joy gone by. When my steps were bathed with cream and the rock poured out rivers of oil for me. When I went out to the gate by the city and when I looked or took my seat in the open square, the young men saw me and hid, and and the aged arose and stood. There was a respect for Job at that time. The princes refrained from talking and put their hands on their mouths, and the voices of noble was hushed, and their tongues stuck to the roof of their mouth. When the ear heard, then it blessed me, and when the eye saw, then it approved me, because I delivered the poor who cried out. Now he's going to talk about the good deeds that he's done. He's been accused of being somebody that's not this way anymore. He's been accused by Eliphaz and Zophar and Bildad that you're being punished because you're a wicked individual. And Job says, I remember those good days. I remember because I delivered the poor who cried out, and the fatherless, and the one who had no helper. The blessing of a perishing man came upon me, and I caused the widow's heart to sing for joy. He brought comfort to these who had lost loved ones. I put on righteousness, and it clothed me. My justice was like a robe and a turban. I was eyes to the blind, and I was feet to the lame. I was a father to the poor. I searched out the case that I did not know. I broke the fangs of the wicked and plucked the victim from his teeth. Then I said, I shall die in my nest and multiply my days as the sand. My root is spread out to the waters, and the dew lies all night on my branch. My glory is fresh within me, and my bough is renewed in my hand. Men listened to me and waited, and kept silence for my counsel. After my words they did not speak again, and my speech settled on them as dew. They waited for me as for the rain. They opened their mouth wide as the spring rain. If I mocked at them, they did not believe it, and the light of my countenance they did not cast down. I chose the way for them and sat as a chief. So I dwelt as a king in the army, as one who comforts mourners. Look at all the things that he's done. He sat at the gate and gave counsel. He was respected by young men, old men, noblemen, even the prince himself. He was elevated even to a position that was equated to that as a king. Here was a man that was loved and respected. Here was a man whose word was taken as law. It was viewed as that which was wise. It was used in a way to help and to comfort. He gave to those who were in need, to those who were poor. He protected those that was downtrodden, where he talked about he broke the fangs of the wicked and plucked the innocent out of his mouth. Here's a man who protected. Here's a man who loved individuals enough that he did the very passage that we find in the New Testament which says, weep with those that weep and rejoice with those that rejoice. When someone died, don't you know Job was there? Job did everything in his power, everything in his ability to say, if you need anything, if there's any way I can bring comfort in your life, if there's any way that I can help you, anything I can do, all you need to do is just give me a nod, and I'll be glad to do that. Now, when you compare this discourse on wisdom with what man thinks is wise, you're going to see that God and man does not see things eye to eye. We look around today and we think there's such great value in money. And, he very quickly says, silver can't buy it, gold can't buy it, jewelry can't buy it. Wisdom comes from God. If you want to know what God has to say, pick up this book. When you look at the Bible and you look at the statement that He gives us all things that pertain unto life and unto godliness, that is God's inspired word. You want to know how to act on the job, what kind of worker you should be, this book will tell you. You want to know what kind of husband you should be, this book will tell you. What kind of wife you should be, this book will tell you. What kind of children you should be, this book will tell you. You want to know what kind of friend you ought to be, this book will tell you. This book will tell you anything and everything that you need to be the very best person that you can be. I didn't say the richest person. I said the very best person. And God is the one who defines that. If you're here this evening and you have not been obedient to the gospel of Jesus Christ, there's no better time than right now. Water is prepared, garments are ready. You can become a Christian this evening. How? Through your faith, repentance, confession that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. And you can be buried with Him in this watery baptism. Have your sins washed away. Have you done that? If you've done those things, but you've fallen short of God's glory and you've gone back into the ways of the world, why not come back to your first love? We're going to sing this invitation song. If you need to respond, won't you do so as together we stand and sing?